everybody to the Wednesday class that shall not be named for 2 weeks in a row. We've had some computer problems, passwords and whatnot. So we're excited to be here as we try and get this all set. To keep switching hosts for me. I don't know what's going on. Having problems again. 1 second. Let's see here with the participants. All right, guys, how can everybody see me now?
Yeah, now we can.
All right, good. Sorry, they got me on.
Zoom is nuts this morning. It looks like they've installed a new app and they've got both of them coming on. Something called Zoom Workplace.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, no, there was a problem with my thing. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a problem.
Did you just hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Zoom is doing something crazy this morning. It looks like they're putting in something called Zoom Workplace. And both of them are coming up at the same time. It's really screwy.
Yes, and it's doubling up. It put me in on I have 2 accounts. It just put me up on both of them. So now I got to go because this is the wrong account I'm on. Sorry about that. It combined my 2 accounts. I probably did something wrong.
No, it's them. Today.
It's always them.
It took me on put me on 2 different accounts at the same time.
That's what it just did to me, but I'm now on the wrong account. So now I'm going to go into I'll be coming in real quick on the other one. So for those of you on YouTube, we're having some 2 issues here. So I'm going to come in. It's going to be some feedback right now for a second. As one.
Oh, Karen.
Hi, Ron.
There we go. Now. I do not know. Can you guys hear me? Okay. There we go. I think I got it. Sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm so sorry again. See, it keeps putting it back to me as host. So hopefully this will work. We will see. Let's see if I can share. Welcome everybody again to the Wednesday class that shall not be named. I don't know if I can share, but we'll see. We're going over high holiday stuff today. It keeps doubling up, bringing in my personal account and my regular account. And then when I try and leave, leave on my private account, only lets me leave on the synagogue account. So it makes it more fun. So welcome to Eva and David and Jeff. Do we go by Jeff or Jeffrey? Jeff and Michael and Ron. I just want to make sure I called you right. Ron and Arlene and Arnold and Karen and Stuart and anybody on YouTube who is still there after all this. Miss you guys. So we're here to continue to study about aspects of the holidays. And what we're going to do, last week we talked about the story of Jonah. And this week we're going to continue with another of the biblical readings that we talked about doing because of high holidays. And so this week we're going to talk about chapter 1 of chapter 1 of chapter 1. So chapter 1 of everything. So this week, of course, we're going to look at the creation story, which is part of the liturgy we use for high holidays here. And it is a story, of course, that is very well known. But we're going to look at it from some different perspectives. Again, we're going to be using the program called Safaria. If you haven't used it, it's awesome. It's free online. And let's see here. Will not let me use my share. Darn it. Because it's switched me over, keeps switching me over to my Mikveh Israel. It won't let me stay on my personal, my Mikveh Israel account. It keeps switching me to my account. So let's try one more time. I'll try and get back on the right account. If we can't, then I will just read it out to you from Safari I have. And let's go to it, see if I can join here and see if, so I apologize for doing this. We're going to try one more time and see if it works. I'm trying to switch off my Mikveh Israel account. So let's see here if maybe this will work better. Okay, no. So I hope everybody else is doing well. And again, I apologize for this technology issues, but it should be really easy, and it is, but it's just making life more interesting. And last week we had a different problem entirely. Okay, so
Ever since the lightning, right?
So I'm going to turn off my sound.
So for anyone who can do this, I pulled Safaria up on my tablet in case Rabbi can't project it or share it. If anybody has that ability.
All right, we'll see. How's it? Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Hear you now.
I will try now. I'm on. They have me and, so let me see. So now I should be able to share. Host disabled, participant screen sharing. So apparently I have
Rabbi,
disabled myself.
Rabbi, let me
Yep.
let me suggest to you, Karen has Safaria up.
Well, I
Right.
have it on my tablet, Stuart. But
Yeah, but if never mind then.
but you know what? If you
Suggest-
can allow if you can allow me to or Stuart to share,
No,
Exactly.
it's not letting
then we
me.
can pull it up.
It's
We'll
not
let
letting me.
you know.
No, it's frozen me from letting somebody
Okay.
else share. It only lets me share on mine. But if I reclaim host, let's see if it lets me share now. Now I guess I got it now.
Oh,
All
good.
right, I got to switch it over to mine.
So we're doing Genesis 1.
Yeah. So as you can see, it's kept me up on. It is making we had different problems. There you go. So you can see it now.
Yeah.
All right. Only 15 minutes later, we got it up. So thanks for your patience, everybody. So what we're going to do, of course, is talk about Genesis 1:1, which is, for us, obviously, an incredible moment in our history where we create this, some would say myth, others say truth, but a story unlike any other story, but similar in the same way to other stories. Now, we are not older than the ancient peoples of Samaria or Egypt. And so there are creation myths that predate this one. But this one is so far superior to the others in meaning, as it almost feels like it came from another world. Like it is one of those stories that should not exist, but yet it does. And so when we talk about it, we know the basic premise. God creates the world in 7 days, really 6 days, and then God rests for the seventh day. It's a pretty familiar story. But the idea behind it is so overwhelmingly, unimaginably ahead of its time that it's hard to understand how this story was created in ancient times. All the other ancient myths of creation deal with chaos, deal with war, deal with uncontrollable forces, and how people are crazy and gods are crazy and everything is just mind-blowingly convoluted. And what we have here is something far superior, and that is a story in which the world is created in what? An organized way. There is an organization to this that is simplistic, that is calm, that is scientific. There is an order to it. God creates something on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. It is all the way it's supposed to be. There is no fighting with monsters or trying to stop the void from overcoming us or ripping up people or attacking gods. And it is just a beautifully simplistic story that almost feels Darwinian in some ways in its evolutionary process, that we're going from one to the next. Now, in the very beginning, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, of course, is a famous saying that there, and some would say obviously in the beginning here, probably more appropriate, when God began to create heaven and earth. V'haaretz hayita tohu vavohu, v'hoshech al panei tehum, v'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. The earth was tohu vavohu, which are words that to this day we don't know what they mean. Tohu vavohu. And right here, the translation that's most often used is the void. Here it says unformed in the void, or unmade. So the earth was unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep and a wind from God sweeping over the water. And then, of course, God famously says, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now, the first question obviously is, what does it mean void? What does it mean unformed? What kind of darkness is over the surface of the deep? And these are really important philosophical questions for us, because we take things for granted. Dark is when the sun is on the other side of the earth. But obviously, we're not dealing with dark from that perspective, because our sun does not light up the universe. And because at this point, they had not created the sun and the moon. That's done day 4, which we'll talk about in a second. So the question is, what is the void, and what is this darkness they're speaking about? And that is obviously a very difficult concept. What is nothingness? What comes before existence? This is not the dark at night. This is a dark of nothing. And even saying the word nothing is something. So what is the void in? And that is a debate that continues on. Obviously, it works pretty interestingly well with the Big Bang Theory, because all of a sudden you have something that explodes into existence. We know that. I'm not a scientist, but the debate is always what came before the marble that exploded. And it's not a marble, we know, but what came before? And this is an essential idea in Judaism to differentiate human beings from God. So this is where we get the only difference in some ways between us and God. And that is tohu vavohu. What does that mean? God created something from nothing. God didn't take ingredients to make the cake. God created the ingredients from nothing, which is a skill we have not figured out. Nothing goes nowhere. There's always something. If we erase something, it has been there, it's still there. It's in our minds. But to truly create something from nothing is a purely godlike ability. And so whatever this void was, and as always, we can go, if you're on Sefaria, you can always go to the, just click on and you can go to commentary. And obviously the commentary for Tohu Vavohu is incredible. 277 commentary, 13 Talmud, 69 from the Midrash. You got the Halakha, you got the Tanakh, you got the Kabbalah. There's a lot on this line. Obviously, it's probably a lot of fun to look at the Kabbalah for this because, it's going to be fun to see. Some of it's in Hebrew, some of it's in English. But we're going to go look at the commentary. So let's see what Rashi, the most famous commentator, said. The word tohu signifies astonishment and amazement, for a person would have been astonished and amazed at its emptiness. Now remember, Rashi comes before Darwin, before Copernicus, before Newton, before Galileo. So they don't have the science to go before any of these previous things. And so that's what he says. It's some sort of astonishment and amazement that we cannot understand, and we'd be so amazed that there was this kind of nothingness because we don't know it's impossible to understand it. So let's go to one more. Let's see what Abarbanel says. That's in Hebrew, so it's too long to read. Let's do what Ibn Ezra then. The word, or in Haaretz, sorry, he's doing the unformed. Saadia Gaon claims the word tohu, unformed, is a derivative of to whom the deep. This explanation is incorrect because the mem of to whom is a root letter like the mem of Hadom. The Sefer Yetzina explains tohu, unformed, and vohu, void, as follows. Tohu refers to the green line. Bohu alludes to the smooth stones. However, the correct meaning of this term is found in the Aramaic translation of the Pentateuch. We simply read, and in the verse, tohu, a howling wilderness. So, or from Samuel, worshiping that something has no substance. So it is something without substance. It is a howling wilderness. So these words have yet to be defined. It's kind of interesting that with all our modern technology, we still haven't defined this word beyond what has been really used forever. I can't seem to clear these drawings. Sorry about that. There we go. So any thoughts or questions before we continue? All right,
Rabbi,
Stuart.
this really leaves open the question as to whether tohu and vabohu is anything at all. Is it, for example, an empty space surrounded by things that are completely disordered? And what God is doing here is now occupying this space by selecting tools, so to speak, or components, and putting them into this empty space in some sort of order. Such as, like think of an analogy, you have a blank piece of paper and a bunch of colored pencils. And that paper starts, it's got nothing in it or nothing on it, and it's void, it's empty, but now the artist is taking colors, so to speak, taking these pencils and using that to fill the space, and two, fill it in an orderly way. Perhaps what we have here is God with an empty palette, God with an empty canvas and a palette from which he's filling the canvas.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And I think you got to go though even earlier than that, maybe a little bit, like there is no canvas. He's got to first create canvas, the idea of canvas. So these are all the questions that are debated throughout the generations. We're obviously going to be the first people ever to come up with the definitive answer to tohu vavohu, a passage that, but it is, again, God colors in the spaces. And so the question is always, what is there before that? But the first thing God creates is not the planets. It's what does God create first? Light. Light is created first, which of course is obvious that it's not the light of the sun, because it's the universe, and the sun comes in day 4, I believe. Yep, day 4 we get the sun. So the light here is another debate. What is this light? Is it the light of God? Is it the light of the Big Bang? Again, light here, or is the same word for light we use for light in our house. But we don't know what the light is, because it's obviously not the sun, because we're talking about the universe. And so what is light? And you can go there and find, we're not going to look for commentaries. This is what the Rambam says about light. That says, and there was light. This verse does not say, and it was so, as it said on the days, because light did not remain in the state all the time as to the other creations. Concerning this matter, rabbis have an interpretation with a profound secret. So again, they're going to go through a lot. Here he says the light does not always remain in the same state. God doesn't necessarily remain on the state, and from our perspective. So we see that, and then we see God says this is good, because God separates light from darkness. Now, calls the light day and the darkness night. Are we still talking about day and night from our perspective? Because again, this is a universal. Maybe the ancients thought of it as day and night from the perspective, and they didn't realize the sun was giving light, or they were far ahead of their time. But day from night is essential, because that is how they divide the first day for the universe. But here is a strange passage that kind of changes how we see things. God said, let there be an expanse in the middle of the water that may separate water from water. God made the expanse and separated the water which was below the expanse from the water, and which was above the expanse, and so it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening and morning a second day. So now we're looking more at earth. And this is a really strange thing, because it's obvious the sky's up at top, right? And there's something below. Okay? And so what do we see in the next verse? God said, let the waters below gather into one area that the dry land may be up here. So you have the sky atop, you have the water below, and on day 3, you have land. So very simple, except for we skipped something. Does everybody see this passage? God made the expanse, and it separated the water which was below the expanse from the water which was above the expanse. If you don't see what I'm talking about, because it's unless you're paying it, you know what you're looking for, there is separated the water which was below from the water which was above. We're seeing now 2 waters. So to paint a picture, because we know I'm basically a professional artist, you've got 1 water. Here's water. And what do? They cut the water with a knife right here. And then all of a sudden, oops, let's do that. Let's go back to blue. Then all of a sudden they have water up here and water down here. And then what do they put in the middle? The sky is right here. And then later they divide this, right? Let's see here, 1 second. They divide this. Let's see if I find the eraser. Where's the eraser? I rarely use the eraser. All right, there we go. And now we get rid of this. And now what do we have? We have water. And in between the water, we have land. So now we have water and land here. We've got the sky up here. All of this is the sky, but above the sky, what do we have?
More water.
We have water above the sky. So this is how the ancient world saw. They've got the sky, and above the sky is water. And then above the water is, what's above the water up here? God, or the heavens. So this is how the ancients probably saw the world. There's water that blocks us from seeing heaven. And so it's a different way of looking at the world and understanding that water is essential, but water is so essential that it is here. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Is the water above maybe rain? I'm trying to see it from.
It's not
Have
rain
we-
because rain comes from the sky.
Okay,
It is a veil. It is a veil that keeps us from seeing the heavens. Does that
okay.
mean? See if it's me doing this. It is not me. Let's see here. All right, we got somebody. I'm gonna mute everybody so we see if we can cut the sound. Let's see, is it me? everybody, would you go on, everybody go on mute for a second and we'll see if we can get rid of this ending. So there you go. So can you guys all see the thing or has it been cut off now?
Been cut off.
All right, so now and we may be cut off earlier because this thing, I think there's something wrong with the synagogue Zoom. We'll have to fix that later. So now we know the second day, we've got sky, we've got night and day. And then we know that they weren't good scientists back then because what comes onto the land? Vegetation, sea-bearing plants, Bayam Elohim, Tadashe Haaretz Deshe Asev Mazria Zera Eitz Pri Ose Pri. Let me know Asher Zar Bo Al Haaretz Vayi Ken. And it was so. God put vegetation, God put seed-bearing plants. It's great. All was good. And there was evening, morning, the third day. But what comes on the fourth day? Of course, we have let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night. They shall serve. So how are we separating day from night? Now, when already we were separating it earlier, day from night. It was evening, morning. So is the first one kind of a worldly, universal, and this one is more specific to our planet? But in the interim, we have to easily discern that without the sun and probably the moon, I don't know, you're not going to have plants. We need the sun to have plants. So scientifically, this is not very accurate, but the Torah is not a book of science. But the idea that there's an organized structure to the world is very scientific. And a lot of what we read could be construed as being so far ahead of its time. But then you see a few things like this where you need the sun for plants to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what we're seeing is some little dichotomy we're coming from this. And you have two great lights, the greater light to dominate the day and the lesser light to dominate the night, and the stars, of course, and stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky. This was good. Fourth day. So we've got 4 days. Day 1 is light. Day 2 is
The oceans,
expanse, right?
sky in the water.
Right. The expanse, so creating the sky and the water below and the water above. Day 3 is the land. And day 4,
Vegetation.
vegetation. So day 5 is where we begin to see animals, which again is scientifically, I believe, correct. I think the vegetation comes before animals, right? Certainly
Yes.
before mammals and animals that walk on land, because most of us come from the water. So let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures and birds that fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky. Animals and creatures come before human beings in reality. I don't think they realize we came from those animals, but again, this is way before Darwin. And let me tell you, there's still people today who don't believe in evolution. So to expect them thousands of years ago. God created great sea monsters and all the living creatures of every kind that creep, which the waters brought forth in swarms, and all the winged birds of every kind, and God saw all this was good. God blessed them, saying, be fertile and increase, fill the waters and seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and morning, a 5th day. So again, what do we think great sea monsters are? Are they the kraken from the Greek mythology? Are they dragons? This could be easily construed as dolphins, whales, sharks, alligators, crocodiles. You know, they see all these creatures that as they move around, they may see different types of creatures. They probably, being so close to Africa, have heard of what animals? Eva? I'll help you unmute.
You know, you're thinking of lions and elephants and
Exactly.
African animals.
Maybe even the Asian elephant as well. I mean, remember where Israel is, which is not the greatest piece of land, but it is a trade route going all the way to Africa, going all the way possibly to India, maybe even China. It is the major trade route through the area goes through Israel. Because if you go east of Israel, it's desert. And if you go west of Israel, it's the water. So if you're traveling by land, so they have heard of, most likely, I mean, it's probably very difficult to believe they didn't hear of the giraffe and the elephant and the hippo. I mean, we have pictures of Japan drawing these animals very poorly from, 1,000 years ago or 50. So they heard of these creatures. They may have even heard of whales. I don't know if whales get into the Mediterranean, but they certainly get off the coast of Africa on both sides, and certainly in the Indian Ocean near Asia. So they have heard of all of these things. And so it is in here because to them, think about somebody describing an elephant to you, but you've never seen an elephant. Or a lion. This giant cat with a mane. What's a mane? With giant teeth, a predator, unlike any predator you've ever seen, or a tiger from India. A tiger being 10 times the size of the little, thing, or a lion. You may have lions that are natural to that area, but they're tiny comparison. So they would be looked at as monsters or giant beasts. And then, of course, on day 6, God creates us. And the debated passage is, of course, going to be, as still today, let us make humankind in our image after our likeness. That line there has, of course, created discussion far beyond anything, maybe even competes with Tohu Vavohu. Because there are two things here. One, let us. Who is this us? Our. We're getting a plural, a first person plural. God is speaking, but when God says let us, are these angels or beings we've never heard of, or messengers, or God's royal court? Is God referring to God's self in the plural? So
Is that the way how it is in Hebrew also?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What's also interesting is right here, this is what makes it we, or our, or us, as is this one right here. But even so, this is the word God, Elohim. You've heard it a lot of time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Elohim is a plural for God.
Plural.
When we say, and God said, it should say, and God said. But it's now used in the singular, representing one God. But it is grammatically plural. So, are we talking about the royal we here? God from different perspectives? Or are we talking about angels? And then, of course, the piece that has become so problematic for us today because of our technology, because of our numbers, some say our lack of foresight. They shall rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the cattle, the whole earth, and all the creepy things that creep on earth. Now, what does it mean to rule? It means to govern, right? It means you're in charge. And it means that we are probably not doing a great job right now in terms of the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the cattle, and the whole earth. This passage is more important today than it's ever been before because we never had the technology to be so destructive before. So this is something to work on for us.
What's the Hebrew? Which is the Hebrew for they shall rule?
So if you look in here, and God spoke to saying, we people, okay, okay, right here.
Vayirdu?
Yep. Which I have to see what the, it's not the usual word we use, but we can look up what the.
That's precisely my question, really.
Is it dominate? Does it mean dominate versus rule?
It does mean dominate, actually, but let's see. It means, let's see here what Rashi says about, if we got your due here. Make a man, nope. Make a man, nope. Images, they shall have dominion over that. May imply dominion as well as descending. If he is worthy, he dominates over the beasts. If he is not worthy, he will sink lower than them. And the beast will roll over him. So them, it's dominion, makes dominion. It could be part of Yered, going down, which is like if you sit up or go down. Like going to Israel is making Aliyah, leaving Israel is Yeridah, going down. So that's but he's like, may imply dominion as well as descending. So if he is worthy, now he gets it. If he is worthy, he dominates over the beasts. If he's not, he will sink lower than the beasts, and we will not be worthy of. So that's a pretty impressive way of looking at it. If we're worthy, we'll have dominion over. If we're not, we will descend below the beasts. Well, I like that. I'm going to use that one. Copy that for later. So
it could be in this case, we're not talking about ownership or anything in that sense. We're really talking about domestication.
Yes, sort of, but that definitely could be part of it. Again, the word they're using is one that is not usually used for this. So that's a good question. So there's a lot of debate. This is from Rashi. Let's look at somebody else. I wanted to make sure because I love the way he said that. I'm going to use that in the sermon.
A lot of evangelicals use that phrase to say that man can do anything. It's their anti-environmental mantra.
Yeah, and I don't want to label who does it, but you're right. It's because some evangelicals are very, think the same thing as us. But you're right. There are those who believe that word gives us carte blanche to do whatever we want. And we're all, we're all to blame for what's going on. But that was a really nice one. Let's see what Ibn Ezra says. Ibn Ezra says, destroy the, all right. It's going to be hard to fruitful. That's right, that's going to be hard to find. Trying to find things that are easy to find. See what Ramban, this is not Maimonides. This is Ramban.
Oh, he's from the one from Girona?
Yes, Nachmanides.
Yeah, Nachmanides is the name. He is
see?
later. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea on account of his man's being male and female. Let them division. And Bereshit Rabbah, the rabbi said, let the earth bring forth. Let's see here. Nope, that doesn't see. Well, again, there's a lot of options. We can look at that later. I'll let you guys look later. But again, we know the issue we have today. Also, it adds the image. What does it mean to be in God's image? Did they think back then that God had human form? Or does that mean something else? So if we go to this one, and we do go to Maimonides, if I can find them, he's somewhere. Go to Maimonides. Oh, they don't have Rambam here. That's strange. That can't be right. They don't have Maimonides. They have Ramban. Well, anyway, Maimonides looks at image of God to mean something more what we would think of. For him, it means intelligence and intellect, self-awareness, understanding. The way I explain it often is, if an animal wants to eat, an animal eats. An animal's tired, an animal goes to sleep. When I'm tired, I stay up late watching YouTube or a TV show. Why? Because I can control it. Animal is trained or computerized or evolves into eating certain food. I can choose any kind of food I want. I will eat Chinese. I eat every type of food, all of them. I eat Japanese, Chinese, Thai, and Vietnamese. I eat every type of food ever created. And that was a joke, by the way, because there's actually more than those type of food, but that's what I eat. So animals are programmed to do things, and they can get out of that programming if disaster creates a necessity. If there's no more food, a herbivore will change and start eating plants over time, but a lot will die. But for us, we can train ourselves. So any thoughts on that? So where am I? Okay. God blessed them, and God said, be fertile and increase, fill the earth and master it. That's where you get the master one. And fill the earth. And rule the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky. God said, I will give you all of this, all the food, all the birds, everything, all the green fruit. God that saw that all was made and found it very good. And so on the seventh day, obviously, God rests. We'll finish with this next time. We're not going to have class next week. We'll announce that because I have to go do something. Day 7, probably the most important aspect for us Judaically is this. And God, let's see, no, I need to go back up a little bit. Never mind. Let's see, chapter I'm finishing. There it goes. Okay. Where's day 7? Did I lose day 7? There you go. On the 7th day, God finished all the work and ceased on the 7th day from doing any of the work. So we change, and what do we say God did? God rested, right? Now we use the word here cease, but we have it as Shabbat, Vayishbot. So what is the debate? Now we rest because later we were giving the opportunity, this is Shabbat right here. We were given I use the word ceased. So we have Shabbat, we rest like God. What is the problem with that analogy? when we say we rest like God? How does God rest? What does it mean for God to rest? God is an entity beyond our comprehension. What does it mean for God to work or cease from working? We have no way of understanding what it means for God to rest. Is God always in motion? We don't know. So later in the Ten Commandments, we're given a day of rest, to cease, mimicking, using the exact same word as God. And so for us, we are mimicking God by ceasing from work, but we have to figure out what that means to rest, because it is not the same thing. And that's where the rabbis and the ancients developed the idea that we rest by not doing anything we did to create the tabernacle. So we don't, that's where it came in, the idea of you don't hammer nails, you don't travel, you don't light a fire. And those are the rules from the Torah, because they did their very best to figure out what rest means. And let's see, we'll go to one more and then we'll finish. See what Rashi says for rest. A human cannot know. Okay. Rabbi Simeon says a human being, literally flesh and blood, who cannot know exactly his times and moments, who cannot accurately determine the point of time that marks the division between one period and which follows the rest, must needs add from the weekday and observe it as a holy day, the Sabbath. But the Holy One must be he knows his times and moments, began the seventh day to a very hair's breadth with extreme exactness, and it therefore appeared as though he completed his work on the very day. All right, so what they go a different route. They start talking about the difference between human beings, God, and animals. Animals just live their day. They do not try and master time. When a season changes, they may change their location, or they may follow animals or the fauna, but they do not try and create a daily schedule. They don't try and master time. So when it says God rested on the seventh day, it means we had to figure out how to create 7 days a week for ourselves. And so, well, we'll finish it there. A little technical there. I hope that was okay. Tried to get a little technical, a little philosophical with what most people think is a very simple section of the Bible, where it's very complicated and very interesting. It's brilliant. There's a lot of debate. It has words that have never been defined. It has concepts that we're still grasping with and grappling with. So next week we'll look at the second, 2 weeks, the second chapter. We did a little bit of the second chapter, but the second creation story, which we don't read on Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah here, but still is really important to understanding the first creation story. So again, apologize for the technical issues. Karen was supposed to take care of all that for us today and failed. So hopefully, Karen, you'll do better next week. That was a joke, everybody. It was not Karen's fault. I do not know what's going on with Zoom. I'll have our tech guy come in and figure this out. I had problems last week, but they were completely different problems than this week. So
it's the lightning.
It could be the lightning. The lightning, that is what it is. Our lightning. So before we can, Jeff, you want to say something?
I do. I appreciate all of this and glad to be able to participate. And maybe you won't hold me responsible for extending this, but for me, a significant challenge here is bouncing between a very concrete human perspective of what God is, like the example of a piece of paper and the pencil, versus what you ended up saying that we can't understand, because right from the get-go, when there was a void, there was still God. So if you picture God as this engineer or scientist that's creating things, that to me is problematic, versus thinking of a God that is beyond anything that we can comprehend and is thought of as being concealed. And what's happening here in creation is that bits and pieces are becoming made available to humans ultimately. And any discussion of whether it's a single God or multiple gods or a he or she, any of those concepts limit God in a way that God is limitless, to my way of thinking. So I think all of these creations give us an opportunity to do what God had in mind as human beings, whether it's to take care of animals in a positive way, the world in a positive way, to study on Shabbat, if not the rest of the time, essentially to do mitzvahs, so that we get closer to God and he is less concealed. I said he, not meaning a male, but God is less concealed and becomes more of the light in the world and less of the darkness. A bunch of words there for me, but taking it beyond just the science and how the world was created or not created.
I think you really summarize the tension we feel in religion, and that is one, we acknowledge God as a concept beyond our understanding, but two, we also must acknowledge that God gave us intelligence and brains to search for God even though we may not find it. It's the attempt that is really defines us as human beings. When we search for God, we make ourselves better. Again, it's like me playing tennis. I'm never going to be Roger Federer, but I still play tennis, even though I know I'm not going to understand the game and be the best ever. I still like playing, the instruments. I still like doing anything, even though I will not be the best ever. So we are supposed to try, but you're right, we acknowledge we can't limit God by thinking we can accurately describe God, but if we don't describe God in some way, then we can't connect. If we don't use the word God, we're just going to say nothing about it. We have to use our words to try and figure this whole thing out. And it is a very difficult concept, God, because even using the word God limits God. Even by discussing an entity called God, we limit God. And so you're right, it's a complicated system. And hopefully we'll figure it out one day. Ron.
Yeah, the most simple thing I've ever heard, Rabbi, about God is what you said. God is nothing, but God is everything.
Yeah, and that's a great way of looking at it. God is nothing, but when we say God is nothing, God is something. So God is everything, but God is nothing. It is a complicated system. And there are people who live their whole lives discussing this question, and it has driven people insane. It has driven people to be recluses, to live their lives apart. But it is another reason Judaism teaches us you got to learn the basics before you start thinking about this stuff. You got to learn to read and write before you're going to read, Moby Dick. It's important because Judaism gives us examples of people who were not able to live really quality lives because these concepts were in their minds all the time. That's why Judaism says, get a job, have friends, have a family. It is to root you to the ground so that you will do stuff and you will be a productive human being. Judaism also says there's always going to be some people who are the thinkers, who are there to think about these things, the ones who can control it. And they are the brilliant ones that live on that edge, but it should be a very tiny percentage. It's the 0.01%. that should be doing this. The rest of us. So good points, guys. Thank you, Ron, Jeff, for concluding so beautifully. Let's conclude here. But before we do, as for upcoming events, of course, this Friday we have services at Wendy Elovik's house in the Lufton area. So it's our last exotic Shabbat of the summer. It'll be 6 o'clock this Friday, very apropos for this group of people, obviously, because we have a lot of people from Lufton. So please join us, bring dishes. On Saturday, we're going to have our annual Food Fest appreciation service and luncheon. Of course, everybody is invited, and we'll invite everybody especially to honor those who volunteer for our food festival. We have Shalom School coming up next week, so if you have kids, please sign up. We have on the 23rd, Charlie Karp's bar mitzvah. Charlie Karp has, by the way, is just probably the premier, one of the premier child actors in the city, so really quite incredible. And then obviously we've got our welcome back party on the 24th after Sunday school. It's a welcome back for everybody. And please look out for Slichot as we prepare for Rosh Hashanah. Slichot is already on the 13th of September. And we're going to have a wonderful musical guest and the whole program. So anybody else want to add anything that's going on with education or Hadassah or sisterhood? Karen.
I was just going to say, you mentioned the food festival, and you can it's the, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's live now. You can go on and sign up. So it's in the email blast, the link. So I know Stuart and I have, well, I've already signed up for my slots. So.
And that'll be the November 9th. So thank you for
Yes.
mentioning that. All right, everybody. Fantastic. So again, I will not be here next week. Sorry, Eva, did you want to say something? I will not be here next week. I apologize. I had something come up that I can't avoid. So we'll have class in 2 weeks. So again, all our best to everyone. Sorry again for the technical issues. And we will see you 2 weeks on the Wednesday class that shall not be named. Thank you again to Eva and David and Karen and Stuart and Ron and Arlene and Jeff and Arnold for joining us on Zoom. And thank you to everybody else who joined us on YouTube. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Be safe.
Thanks.